Well, the TV says 6:35, but I've got 6:30 on my iPad, so.
Yeah.
Either way, I think.
I started the YouTube stream.
All right, well, let's do it. Well, I will go ahead and call to order the October 3rd Redevelopment Commission meeting. Nikki, can we do roll call?
Sure. Alex Jordan.
Here.
Shelley Haney. Here. Ruth Hess. Here. Larry Longman.
Here.
Shannon Walls. Here. Brian Hurley.
Yeah.
Danetta Key Wheeler.
Here.
All right. Next we have the meeting minutes from September.
Here's the short version.
I'll take it.
Like an hour presentation. All boiled down to
Okay.
Mr. Groff made a presentation.
That's right. That's what minutes are for. That's
I'm
exactly
slightly
right.
offended.
Should have just put a hyperlink in there and say full version here.
I
there
actually
you
can't
go.
do that.
I don't have anything.
Rough crowd today.
I did not see anything. October's minutes.
Anybody got?
No.
No.
Okay, I just need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion. We approve the September 5th, 2023 minutes.
I'll
as
second it.
presented.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Okay, financial report for September. Anything interesting?
Nothing. Next month will be more interesting.
Yeah.
Nope, just standard carrying costs for the 600, which we have one more that'll show up next month along with the final invoice, but
Okay.
then we'll be done with that. Yay. And then just the rebar owner's rep, or not rebar, Veritas.
What's the London Witty group invoices?
Various financial report, like the report we worked on last week, that the bond kind of consolidation report that we'll start giving you, just putting all that together. I'd have to look at what the other ones were off the top of my head. One of them was was some of the annual reporting that we have to submit to the state.
Mhm.
They put some of that together for us as well.
Okay.
They tend to bill later. Always throws me off, but I can pull those if you want me to check what exactly
Just,
they are.
no, just asking.
Anybody have questions? Pretty straightforward, I'd say.
Mhm.
It was related to the property.
All right. Next we'll move on to the old business. Looks like we have an approval of a claim, the final invoice for the 600 North agreement with Rebar.
As I mentioned, we talked about 511, and then when I got the final invoice, there were some additional costs associated with closing. They're all in the packet. And then I also sent you the comments from both Liz and Shelby on that as well. So you have all the information that I have on it. Even with the additional costs, it still ended up being a really good deal for the town, and I'm happy we're able to settle it out within a year of us signing the contract. So that's pretty incredible too, and we don't have to drag this out for multiple years, because if you remember, the contract allowed us to pay back within a 3-year period, and we're just going to be able to be done and move on, which is always nice. So.
When he references in his response that, Rebar lost about 60,000, how did that occur?
I mean, he's a developer. So
Yeah.
No,
I would hope
how
I
it occurred
only
was
lost 60.
In his mind.
in his mind. No, some of it had to do with him keeping that little chunk where he's gonna build that small 2-story building next to IU
Yeah.
Health, that we kinda said you're gonna do that. He couldn't account for that in the overall accounting, so he had to carve out a chunk of the land there. I think that's how he's accounting for that 60. He's basically eating that, but he'll make it back in another project later.
Okay.
That'd be my guess, without seeing his back end spreadsheet. Either way, it's, I don't.
Because he wanted to sell it to them, or did they want to buy it?
Yeah, I mean, he saw that, he sees this, and I agree, as a nice anchor that's gonna help drive traffic in McCord Square, and as he continues to look at doing additional projects in McCord Square, that was a small loss for the bigger picture that he'll make up in future projects.
Okay.
So, I appreciate a developer willing to do that and willing to be at the table too, so.
I was gonna say, so the 5, what we're paying for the remaining.
And then this is coming out of the,
This will come out of the
Broadway.
Broadway.
yeah, it's the only one that has enough.
Yeah. Yeah, Broadway allocation area, which
Okay.
we have plenty of funds for, and then we'll get our December draw. So we'll be fine for the initial bond payments next year as well.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, if anybody's got questions, I guess now's the time to ask, but if not, I'll just take a motion to approve the claim.
I'll make a motion that we approve the invoice from Rebar McCordsville for $566,478.46.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes 5-0. All right.
All right, thank you all.
Yeah. Now on to some new business. Looks like we've got 2024 projects to talk
Yeah,
about.
this is just a brief kind of initial discussion. So we're still waiting on guidance from the DLGF. If you recall, the state legislature added another additional reporting item for redevelopment commissions starting in 2024, where you basically have to list all the projects you intend to do the year before. Since that time, they've given absolutely zero guidance, direction. There's no form to fill out. We don't know what we're doing. So we've started, everyone's talking in the background, all the attorneys and financial advisors and our, economic development people, of how we're going to handle this. So DLGF did come out and said they expect to have a draft document and some guidance sometime mid-October, which gives us a whole lot of time to the end of the year to figure out how to do this. Our assumption is this first year, most redevelopment commissions are going to just put in some really padded wording. We'll see what they let us get away with, and then it'll get tweaked next year at the legislative session. So with that being said, you've seen our financial statements. We're not, pouring money out of different pots here. So there's only so much we can do. It'll actually be a pretty, I'll hate to say it, but a little down year for the RDC doing much other than we do have some property acquisition we want to look at, and kind of just, we wanted to talk about a couple areas of what projects we would tuck in there specifically, and then we'll see what kind of general language they're advising us to do and other properties that become available within. So, but we wanted to kind of get your opinion and feedback of what we see 2024's Redevelopment Commission based on the financial report that we have, knowing that our bond payments are going to start in the biggest allocation area. And we're probably about a year or two away from Brookside really starting to fund well, where we can bite off some big projects. So we want to talk about, Ryan and I sat down and did our priority projects list, and I'd say a majority of them are park related or trail related, and then road related after that. So there's a lot that fit really nice into Brookside, and there's a lot that we would recommend for Broadway. And then we're kind of sitting on the ones down south right now because they're new. There's tax abatements on a lot of the properties and there's nothing really being generated, so there's not a lot of planning we need to do at this time down there. So this actually should be a pretty easy year for us to do this, but we wanted to walk through that. So I'd say the first thing we want to do, and we'll talk about Brookside. And this area is where am I? Sometimes I zoom in too quick and forget where I'm at. So where's 900? There we go. Oh, I went too high. Yeah, sorry. We need to restate Brookside next year. I talked about doing it all this year, and this year was just super busy. And when I say restate, for those of you that were at Ruth, you weren't on when we restated Broadway, but every once in a while you look at your parcels, you decide, are these the right parcels to be in there? Did any of them change? So they might be not for profit now or something, you need to take them out. Are they contiguous? Are they commercial? Or do you have a bunch of residential in there that shouldn't be in there? So you look at your parcel lists, you make sure your boundaries are correct, and then at the end of your actual declaratory is an economic development plan. And it's really a living, breathing document where you list out everything you intend to do within that development area. So we haven't looked at that in a while, and this particular economic development area has morphed over the years. So it's a good time to revisit where we're at. And I mentioned that right now we're getting cash flow finally. Leo's is going to help, but when this development actually starts generating tax and then this commercial, there will be a pretty good cash flow to be able to do what we think we need to do in this area. And those are generally all infrastructure projects. So the easy ones, and Ryan might chime in here, there's from here to here is a sidewalk gap. And it's a little bit outside the EDA. We'll have to look at that, but it could be adjacent to or serving. But we want to try to fill in some of these sidewalk gaps. We think there's one right here from 900 to right there. You can kind of see it. I can zoom in a little bit more. But we think if this parcel redevelops, they'll put that sidewalk in for us. So we want to be able to connect this neighborhood to this neighborhood at this point. So that's going to be some property acquisition and some sidewalk. We don't know if that's going to be a TIF project or not, but we want to put it on your radar as a possibility. We think that's a good project for this area.
Do you know are projects submitted for those by Leo's?
South of Leo's?
Yeah. Or I guess either of those areas.
That site right there is a PUD amendment has been filed and is going to council next week. It's essentially what you would expect it to be. It's an outlot or two and a small retail strip, and they're seeking some tweaks to some setbacks and some language, but nothing major.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and the obvious big project that we'll file for and find different funding, but will probably be a TIF bond at some point out of here, is the eventual roundabout at 900. That's the obvious project. However, with that, there will be some sort of design, whether it goes here or where we intended down here, depending on if the Wesleyan property opens up, there will be a traffic light down here somewhere, whether it's at Villages in Emerald Springs or if it's south of that. If you talk immediate need of what we're hearing, it's right here. That'll help create gaps, but we really want it down here because if this has commercial components to it, more traffic, and this does as well, you'll still be able to come out to a light here, and it gives you a longer gap away from 900 to break up the traffic. The problem is nothing's happening right here right now, and we're okay with that. We got plenty on our plate, but that's not going to alleviate the problem right here anytime soon. So we're having that discussion internally. There's some additional road projects here. We need decel lanes and turn lanes the other way. And hopefully with development, they'll be able to connect that through, and that's the spot that makes the most sense.
Will they not do anything temporary there? I mean, and I just asked that, like
right here?
Yeah, it's so dangerous. Like, I worry about kids every morning. I mean, there's accidents. I tell the kids to go through Deer Crossing.
Yeah.
If
Well,
they
we-
don't do something soon, I'm just afraid somebody's gonna get seriously hurt.
What we don't want to do is put a light up because you'll never remove it then.
Yeah.
And you're creating a bigger problem. But if council advises us that that's the right spot to do it and that's what we need to do, we can do that pretty easy and we could actually probably do that sooner than later. We just think that's going to create a problem in the future when all this develops right here.
Make it worse, yeah.
Because now you're almost too close for a light right
Right.
here. Now you've created a problem. And this is going to this is theoretically, depending on how it develops, is going to generate significantly more traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tough one. We'll put all that in there, and then the reality is we're probably not, at most, we do some planning for it next year, some design. But that is absolutely something we're going to want some council feedback on how they want to handle that. And then the other one that we're talking about, so we have, Ryan and I have debated about this quite a bit. I won't go too in depth, but this is owned by Deer Crossing, and it's kind of a scrap parcel, if you will. They mow it. There's a lift station on it right here. Ryan's kind of always seen it. Do you want to explain your vision better than me?
Yeah, so we've always seen this parcel as kind of like the trailhead to a much larger trail that's kind of traverses this ditch from Mount Comfort all the way over to 700 West. You've seen parts of that trail get built. The Vineyards built their trail, within the bridge portion. Vintners Park will finish theirs trail out. So essentially, you're going to have a trail that kind of does a little bit of, in some cases it follows the creek, and in some cases it follows the road, but you're going to have a trail from Carroll Road to Mount Comfort. And when that's finished, you'll essentially have a 4-mile loop, right? Because Carroll's already installed for the most part. Fishers have done 96th Street, and then we've done the east side of Mount Comfort Road. So you create a really nice big loop, and that parcel always jumped out to us as not usable for anything else. So let's make it the trailhead for this larger trail loop system. Put, some things there, maybe a small parking lot, 6 to 8 cars, nothing big. Some signage, maybe some, you could put some sort of, not a playground, but you could put, a bocce court or something small in there and kind of make just a nice trailhead there. The issue we've had, the Deer Crossing HOA has been supportive of the concept, but it's land owned by the subdivision, the HOA, and they need a certain percentage of lot owners to sign off on that in order to transfer it or to sell it. And they just can't get signatures. Not that people are necessarily against it. There's just, I guess you'd call it apathy in terms of getting people to show up to some place to actually sign a document. So it's been dangling, this concept's been dangling for probably at least 2 years with real no signs of it ever being concluded soon. And so it's made us kind of reevaluate the concept. We still want to do the trail system, but do we look at a different property for that trailhead, which is what kind of Tim is drawing now.
Yeah, so since that time down here, there's a new development. This is the Tatum property. Part of the design, the main entrance is here, but there's kind of this front 2.5 acre park that they're going to put in here, and it's nice. The debate is, do we ask for it to be a public park, or do we let it just be an HOA park? Now, the pros of it being, we don't really have a park in this quadrant. So together, if you had some parking, but there's not a really good way to have parking here. So what do you do with 2.5 acres? It's kind of small to be a park. It's just something we got to maintain. But together, it actually is not a bad little inset park in the northwest quadrant of the town that we don't have. So we could kind of negotiate these two with an idea that we'll have a connector across the trail. The trail kind of falls, is it the north side or the south side?
The north side.
The north side of the stretch here. And then this goes into, I'll come back to this here, the other project here that we want to talk about and put in the plan. So we have an easement right here across the school land to connect the trail. We do not have an easement around here for Bay Creek. So we need to, again, same thing as Deer Crossing, how are we going to get enough signatures to acquire an easement or purchase property for this little chunk right here to get that trail out to 600? So that's something we're gonna have to work on. We're gonna have to come up with a plan. You gotta do it at some
Have a
point.
big gathering of food and snacks and food trucks.
Or
Or
just-
come out for free food.
Or you go door to door. I
So-
mean, that's
Right,
what, that's what we had to do at
Yeah, I mean.
Villages of
it's-
Brookside. We just went door to door and they signed it so you'd leave. I mean, they didn't care. Sent the paper around, they signed it, now you can't sell your home to rental property, so.
So acquisition and extension of this
Go
trail
away.
is where we're ultimately going with that. And then the question becomes, and it's probably more of a council question of, does a park here make sense, or is this
Well, the
something?
trail's always gonna be on the north side of 900, right? That's the only problem is you park your car and then you have to walk across 900.
So I think you're gonna have to make some different connections. So the trail is along the north side of the ditch, on the north side of 900 North, but you're gonna have to cross at some point and put in probably a mid-block pedestrian crossing. And I think you're gonna have, you have sidewalk in front of the Traditions at Brookside, and you'll have it all along the south side of 900 North. So you'll have your ped connections that make all the connections necessary to make both sides feel like they're one park.
Do you know from your Fishers days, both of you guys, I guess, is that B Camp Creek, that little pocket park, is that part of the HOA or is that a Fishers park?
B Camp Creek.
It's right
Oh.
up
Up
way over
north of 96?
I believe that is a
I
Fisher's
believe
Own
that's a
park.
Fisher's Park.
That's kind of what I'm seeing
Correct.
right there, and you're kind of tucked away and
Yeah.
hidden from the rest of the neighborhood with the tree line there.
And it connects to a very long trail system through those
Right.
3 or 4 neighborhoods right
And
there.
there's maybe 8 parking spaces there.
Yep,
Yep.
that's the concept.
That's what we kind of see, and then we have a presence there. It's just a little bit, it's small, but it's good for throwing a frisbee and running your dog and attacking Brian's dog and earlier joke. So it's not a bad spot. It's kind of a pretty entrance in. It could be a nice little asset here and not too overwhelming to maintain. But it's probably above Ryan and I's pay grade to make that decision.
I mean, one other element, I don't know how well the people that are at Traditions get around, from a pedestrian point of view, but that would be a good connection and possibility for them.
Yeah,
It,
agree.
it would, and the folks that are in the apartments, not in the main facility, would certainly be movable enough for that.
Mhm.
If you scroll out a little bit, Tim, and focus on Traditions, there's actually a connection from Villages of Brookside through Traditions. So you really get great connectivity to 3 or 4 neighborhoods with this.
Mhm.
They're direct connections. You cross streets, but it's 900 North. You're not crossing Mount Comfort to get
Right.
there.
Yeah.
So it's really pretty accessible.
We could we're at a spot in this development where we can probably negotiate them improving it and handing it over to us in exchange for park impact credits,
Mhm.
impact fee credits. We'd have to negotiate this side of it. But we could make 2 sides of 900 look pretty nice and give a little bit of public access, So this one would probably be a RDC request to help us acquire property. It's just easier for you guys to do it in town.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, well, we'll put them in the plan, and I'll guarantee there'll be more council level discussion on that, but we appreciate that feedback, because we've been debating it, and you mentioned one time there's a certain acreage that you really, before you really want to park, but we have some of these pocket parks built
Yeah.
in, and I think you can make them nice.
Yeah, you want to be careful that you don't get too many small pocket parks, because it becomes a lot of touches and maintenance at small spaces. It's, at some point, you'd rather just have some big ones. It becomes easier and more time efficient, but.
And then the intent is the trail will go to here, and if we can acquire this chunk of easement, we'll get the trail out to 600, and then when we do the roundabout, it'll connect down, and then I'm sorry, it'll go up and connect to right there.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Sorry,
Hmm.
I forgot. So that is the plan in this area, and that's that list kind of came together pretty easy for this area and the Brookside, so.
What
Anything that,
What about the crossing up by Geist Woods Estates? Is that,
Yeah,
it's,
so
I mean,
Oh,
we
up
need
here?
we need a piece that goes over to Carroll Road too.
what really needs to happen here is we need the city of
Yes.
Indianapolis to construct from the existing trail on the west side of 700 West down to that intersection that Tim's on.
Okay.
There's a gap that's not in McCord, so
Is it down here?
go north.
Oh, north.
Because right now, I just ride my
Scroll
bike
in
all
right
the way to
there.
the end.
Oh, right
and
here.
just-
So
Cross
right
Carroll
there,
Road.
from his cursor down to
Mhm.
that's what needs to get built by somebody else, and then we could do the crosswalk over. Actually, Indy should do both those projects. That's their roadway, it's their right of way. And originally, if you remember way back, Larry, sorry, maybe
Mhm.
more detailed than you wanted, but when we cut the deal to extend the trail that is on that side of the
Yeah.
road up, the whole idea was the Guys Harbor Property Owners Association would then seek e-permit through the city of Indianapolis to extend, it's only like 500 feet,
Mhm.
and extend a concrete sidewalk, which would be the cheapest route to go, and do that as part of the agreement, and it just, they never did it.
It's probably
Because doesn't the
easement
trail go
acquisition.
back here?
It was from one of their neighborhoods though. It's one of their, property
Right.
owner neighborhoods.
Got some uncooperative homeowners would be my guess.
Doesn't the trail go back into here? Though?
It does.
And it
and-
just dies?
It dies, and the issue is that location, the engineers felt was too close to the curve to cross there.
That's what I was saying. So Tim, I'll ride my bike all the way up to the end on the east side, and then cross, just across Carroll Road, and hope that you play chicken every time you do that.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely needs to be back here. And we do have residents reach out on that all the time.
Yeah.
So that would be more of a town project, though, working
Mhm.
with Indianapolis. That's way out of Brookside's economic development area. So, all right. Anything else on Brookside? Did we kind of cover it? Is there anything we're unaware of that you'd like to see in there? Okay. So then on Broadway, our main focus is a few properties on the radar that if we knock on the door,
Can I ask one question? Did you, and this may not be Brookside, is there a roundabout going in at Carroll and,
900?
don't use those numbers.
What, 86th
I thought we
Street?
worked on that, Tim.
Sorry.
Yeah, just south
I'm
of the
kidding, I'm
vineyard.
kidding. I'm getting better. After so many years, I'm starting to learn. Yeah, 86th Street, right? Is
86th
that-
Street?
Yeah.
That's 26, is that, it's supposed to be 26?
Well,
Is
we're
that how far off
submitting
they think
for
it's
it
gonna
right
be?
now through the MPO, so it has
Okay.
not been funded yet.
Okay.
There's a joint agreement with Indianapolis, Lawrence, and McCordsville to fund that roundabout.
I heard about it at the Chamber of Lawrence event.
Yeah,
That's where they talked about it and said they had worked with us on it, so.
Yeah, Lawrence's lead agency, so they'll be the one making the grant submission, but our council's agreed to fund a portion of it.
Okay.
yep. So the fact that you have 3 communities submitting funding and partnering on it is a good thing for the MPO. So we have a really good shot at getting that one, but even if we get it, it's 5 years out.
I was gonna say, they acted like it was, well, I think they said 2026, 2027, but they were real excited.
It could be 27,
Okay.
probably.
7.
Okay,
The state funds now, it's possible.
okay.
That Lawrence actually has concepts for the other intersections too at 800. I don't know what the cross number is. Now you got me nervous.
No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
And 750.
Okay.
But we'll see that if we get the one at 86th Street and Carroll Road done,
Yeah.
that's a huge win. Because
Yeah,
that
it-
one's dangerous because that hill.
I was gonna say,
You
it's just
come
really
over, you
hard,
can't
yeah.
see.
Okay. Okay, sorry. I had that on my list to ask because when I heard it there, I thought that's something for us to talk about. Thank you.
So the main projects in Broadway, thank you. We had talked about, we don't know what's happening here. Culver's is on tack. It's still moving forward. We just met with the property owner today for the parcel up here. We're still negotiating something with Dr. Harbin we've kind of talked about in case we have to vacate Indiana. So there would be some commitment from the RDC, kind of like a business improvement grant to a certain degree, a little bigger than our normal ones, but not outrageous. We have had some conversations with them. We're drafting that agreement. And the intent is so that we can acquire additional right-of-way so that we can expand the road for traffic flow there. So in exchange, he would essentially have to build a parking lot in the back of his building, not at our dime, but we would help with some of that and then acquire the right of way in exchange. So we've talked about that. That'll be included as one of our potential economic development projects that theoretically could still happen this year. We're desperately trying to get the surveyor to send us a document that we can sign, but survey companies seem to be backlogged or too busy to care. So it's been a struggle on every project.
I agree with that one.
Yeah. There it is. We talked about this one earlier as well. I have this is entirely on me why this hasn't moved anywhere. I just haven't had time to call or reach out. It's not the biggest deal that we haven't moved on it or called, and the owner might say I'm not interested anyways, but I will add that as a property acquisition list property. We'll probably add this one too, even though it's active, just in case something happens in the next year. And then the other one that we'll add is, because we really need it to go away.
So it's empty now. You
It's
heard
empty
that,
now.
right? Like you can just go
Isn't
in
ready
and
to
take whatever.
condemn.
Is
you
this the
want.
house with all the animals?
Yeah, he's
Yes,
gone though.
so he's gone.
Ryan's
He's
gonna
moved.
move in
I
there.
thought it was vacant.
Ryan
Everybody
There's
was just trying to
furniture and stuff in it, and he
rebar
says if you
the
want it, just
town,
go get it.
and now the county
Like, who's
is
gonna do
even
that?
knocking on the
That's
door
disgusting.
because
Just go wander in.
there's an
Might have a
erosion
snake.
issue here with the county drain that is causing problems with the cemetery. So they're gonna have to fix the drain on the backside. So there's even a chance that the county's gonna knock on there and try to acquire this, and we just cannot get the owners to respond or make any movement on it. So it's now in the realm of causing problems with existing utilities and everything else. So that one will definitely be on the list as well. Just FYI.
Well, I heard it was the tenant that bought it.
Oh, nobody
What
bought
was in
it.
there, apparently he's the owner now, but he's not there. So if that's true, we should be able to
I
track it
can't
down.
imagine they got that from
I think he
Tower.
did it because he
Tower
thinks he's
report
gonna
bill.
make some money.
Yeah.
McWordsville investors.
That's it. That's the.
It hasn't changed yet.
Okay.
We already bought a house somewhere and then he moved out, but we'll see. And that, in addition, the last one I had, I think on the acquisition, again, these are all ones we've talked about this year, is knock on the door and see if anything's changed on this in case we ever want to bring that across here. So Stanley owns that. They weren't interested this year in selling, but we'll keep that on our interested if it becomes available list. I was mentioning to Alex prior to the meeting that we are just inching forward on closing with the Thomases. And Greg's been involved in a lot of this. Some of the stuff we put in the purchase agreement, they're taking a little too seriously, and the title company's been slightly difficult on this one. And so we're technically past the time we're supposed to close. We're closer now. Both sides needed some additional information. We have the survey recorded. We're just trying to get to the finish line. Everyone's still on board and happy. It just, man, has been the worst closing I've ever been through in my life.
Are we already using it technically?
Well, we have a construction easement on there,
Okay.
so we're only using the construction easement for
Okay.
the police station, and that project's going real well. So we will get it done here in the next week or so, but it has been a painful process. With that said, the infrastructure project that we'd most likely look at, Shelby is still, he's got a multi-tenant building, but he's also looking at
I think so.
about 8 townhomes that would go on the backside here overlooking the pond. They're actually really cool. Like, if I were moving into a townhome this year, that'd be what I'd look at. But I have 2 kids in college coming up, so.
You're not doing anything ever again.
But if he does that, so we know the 750 roundabout's not going to be done by the time the police station opens. So actually doing this boulevard and connecting it to Civic Drive is going to be our next connection point. Now, if he does some of this development, he'll do some of this for us. But we think that's probably needs to be the next thing that happens in McCord Square. So we might do some planning for it next year and build it in 25. But some of it, if we get developers to do it, that's great. But some of it, I don't think we can wait because of the police station. So we might push that little chunk. We won't go any further than this connection, but we might try to get that done so it's up and running. And we have an access valve for the PD when we tear up 750. So that, and besides that, I think the only other infrastructure I'd say to keep Ryan happy is if if opportunities come along, there is some redevelopment possibly happening right in here. I'll just do that general area because I don't know exactly where. There could be an opportunity for us to finally put curbs and sidewalk through there, and we
What
would
is that?
gladly do that if they give us the right of way to do it.
Kinsey's.
Oh.
And define entrances and allow that. So if that comes to fruition, anywhere along Broadway, no, yeah, Broadway. Thanks. Yeah, just rolling on the roads today. Anywhere along Broadway that we could add sidewalk or curb appeal, we should take that opportunity.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And
Lights, curb gutter,
it's going to be
grass.
piecemeal, but we just got to do it when the opportunity comes available. We had, there's a potential changeover. GT's is proposing a new building, and somebody might go in here, and we've already talked to them about, hey, if you do that, can we get some right of way here to put in a sidewalk and a curb cut? And they said, absolutely. So we'll have this random little chunk of sidewalk and curb cut, but it's a start.
We have easement rights to the one next door too. We negotiated that.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. So we can get to that.
We can get to, yes.
Did
So
you
that-
say GT Services is looking at relocating?
They're looking at improving their property back here
Oh, okay.
and adding a building here for some warehousing and other stuff. So, so they would move their headquarters over there, and then there's somebody looking at
Okay.
that. So, not very far. Like they could probably just walk everything over.
Is there any interest in the Salisbury property?
Actually, this project would take a little bit of it for additional parking. And there's a chance they could even come back. It's too new, they didn't really have a plan for it yet. The GTs has asked a little bit about adding some parking for it on this side. We weren't sure if that meant taking the house down or just adding parking, but it's still kind of in flux. We don't really know what they're doing yet, so.
We want to be careful. We don't want to turn Salisbury into a massive parking lot either. It needs to be redeveloped in a thoughtful manner. So we'll see how that goes.
Anything else for that?
That's my streetscape.
Streetscaping, we'll add streetscaping generic in there. And that's about what we have, because realistically, we're gonna have our first bond payments, and we're gonna have a few $100,000 to do either buy a property or two, or do a project, or some design. That's about what we're gonna be able to do next year. I did that. Okay. Ryan's asking if we do have monument signs. Oh, you're not talking about that? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sidebar.
Different monument sign. Are you talking design or actually building? So we're working on design for kind of welcome to Corsville entrance signs that we could put at our entranceways. So that could be one we could put in there as well as we see this as being the first sign right by Crew Car Wash. So if we get that design done, that could be another project that wouldn't break the bank. That would be a really nice start to what we want to do. And when 500's roundabout gets in, we'll probably do something down there as our southern entrance, and we'll go from there. But, so that could be something we could add in there as well. Good idea.
Could be a permanent mounting post for our flock camera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
Good.
That'd be nice.
So, with that, that's all I had.
Sounds good.
Okay, Larry?
You need
council
the deets.
liaison report?
The deets, so last meeting was a lot of HR junk. Vacation days, sick days, and all that stuff. So we had
Paints a picture, doesn't he?
spirited debate about PTO. We actually had a resident come in. So one of the things that we're struggling with as a town council is when new developments get platted, most people don't understand what the easements mean and what not putting a fence in the easement means. So we had a situation for Brookside, and this is going to be true on the entire south, I don't know what the road is, but it adjoins, say, the sewer plant property. But there's a couple big there's a big sanitary sewer line that runs down there and a ditch, and essentially someone that had 75 feet of property line from their back of their house could only put a fence at like the 25-foot mark because of all the utilities and infrastructure that go through there. So they brought their case to the drainage board, and unfortunately we told them they can't put the fence in the easements because there's just too much stuff in there. And that's just true with a lot of the developments in town, that residents don't understand that when you buy a property, you can't typically put a fence over an easement unless it's something that's very low probability we'll ever have to maintain. So we're struggling with how to reconcile that in the future, other than requiring developers to provide separate easements outside of property lines, which makes developments become net smaller, if you will, for all that space. So anyway, it's going to be a future council problem for a short time right here. Yes. So that was one of the items presented. Champion Lakes came out and told us they were really happy with Colonnade development going on. A lot of good feedback there. We also talked about flashing school zone lights. That would be something we add, and I think we're going to add the.
Those are ordered, and we're just waiting on an install date.
And your speed is, those things are pretty handy. So I believe the two of the signs. Or just one?
You'll have the speed on 600 Mount Comfort.
Yeah, I do know that. It has 3 names, but
And
I've
you'll have
learned them
just
all.
Right.
and you'll have just
them all.
flashing
Oh,
school
Leo.
zone on 700. Or, yeah, 700.
Yeah.
There is one in front of, isn't there one in front of McCordsville Elementary? Don't we have a year speed?
No, there will be
There
one
will
though.
be
Dr.
Yeah.
Parker's
I don't know.
really excited about
Yeah.
this.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where's
Yeah.
the other one going?
So you'll have
Same,
the
like,
speeds
sort
on
of
Mount
southbound,
Comfort, and then 700 will have just
Yeah.
flashing school zone lights.
Yep.
Where's the other one? I'm sorry.
700.
I know where that's at.
Now Shannon.
Champion Lake.
65th.
And topic that we talked about earlier, 900 North and Carroll Road. We talked about joining the financial commitment for putting a roundabout there. And signed a couple plats, McCord Square, Deer Crossing, and I believe another neighborhood too. One of the things that we had to reconcile, we've been collecting voluntary payments from developers for what would commonly referred to as a road impact fee. So when you bring a new development in and you create more traffic, create more weight, whatnot, we officially made a fund to collect all those road impact fees into. And we had a spirited discussion on the Indiana Street alley vacation. And we tabled it.
I feel like I need to come to town council.
Right.
That sounds like a
Right.
fun meeting.
Yeah, seems to be some miscommunication.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a 2-page agenda.
Yeah.
It was like 3.5 hours too, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'll watch at home.
YouTube.
It's on YouTube
Live
and you can
feed, yeah.
scroll.
There you go.
Live feed. And I think that's probably the highlights. The Ignite grant.
There you go.
So we signed a letter to accept a grant, or we at least approved that the letter be, if it's agreed to by our.
I'm working on it today and got the language worked out, so.
Okay, and
it's
remind
not
me
been
what,
typed up yet, but
what the
yes.
value is and what it's applied to.
About 25,000 for amenities in McCord Square.
Excellent, like trash cans, benches, that kind of stuff.
Water features and
Water
fire features.
Okay, all right. There we go. I would say, and the reminder, trunk or treat's going to be Sunday, October 29th, 4 to 6 p.m. Take a little thunder from you. And we are also out for a website RFP and had several responses,
Oh, yeah.
and a legal services RFP as well.
Yes.
So I think that was that's probably the highlights.
Don't leave us.
Well, that's the
Sounds
council's
good.
decision.
Thanks.
All right.
I don't want to.
Do we have any public comment? Okay. Well, then our next meeting will be November 7th at 6:30. And I just need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Wow.
Can we get a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Danetta wasn't waiting for Shelley on that one.